On October 10th, going to call the Wilton Board of Education regular meeting to order. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? Yes. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move.
Thank you, Pam. Is there a second? Thank you, Heather. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Comments from the public. The board has set aside time at the beginning and end of regular meetings for public comments, for members of the public to share their views on matters involving the Wilton Public Schools and to help inform the board's decisions on such matters. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to any one subject. For the record, please also give your name and address. The board considers the views of citizens in its deliberations and welcomes and appreciates public comment. The board listens to public comment thoughtfully and with interest. The board, however, generally does not respond to public comment during board meetings by offering commentary or answering questions. The board also invites commentators and the public to contact the board or the superintendent directly with any specific questions or comments. The board, through the chair and the superintendent, may respond to questions and comments offered during the public comment period or shared directly. And in responding, may also direct members of the public to the appropriate staff member for a response. Are there comments from the public?
It's just me. Hi.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, 2 minutes is even more of a challenge. I thought it was 3.
We'll give you some grace.
Okay, thank you. I think I've got like 10 minutes here. So, good evening. I'm Vanessa Elias. I live at 101 Middlebrook Farm Road. I'm the parent of one high school sophomore, and I have 2 that have graduated Wilton Public Schools. I'm also a mental health activist and a certified parent coach. And I also want my children to outlive me. So let me just start by saying that. In the words of Lenore Skenezy. I'm here to speak in support of the bell-to-bell ban with the use of yonder pouches. There has been not much talk in the community about how kids need to learn how to manage technology as they launch into the world. This is absolutely true in an ideal world, but the fact is that many of us adults with fully formed brains are unable to do that ourselves. It is negatively impacting our lives, our well-being, and our relationships. Also, we've had plenty of time to test this theory, and it has not worked out. I have said for years that technology is like a knife that can save our life or take our life, and right now it has been taking our lives more than saving them. Many don't realize that the suicide rate is actually double the homicide rate in this country. We are focusing on the wrong things. When parents say the school needs to teach our kids how to manage and limit their use, just say no and have consequences. They're asking the school to do what they have been unable to do in their own homes. Work and technology have gotten in the way of family dinners, talking during car rides, most importantly their relationships, and their sleep. With phones in their bedrooms, lack of sleep is not being managed, and our kids are on their phones more hours in a day than they have slept. There has also been talk about our kids needed for jobs in the future. The World Economic Forum's 2023 Future of Jobs report, in the top 10 skills list, technology was just one. Technology literacy. The rest emphasize the importance of soft skills, better said human skills, in the future of work. And it says that they are increasingly sought by employers. Self-efficacy, communication, working with others, ability to handle stress, collaboration, empathy, adaptability, and conflict resolution. It's not tech skills our kids are lacking. It's the life skills, the human skills, and when the phones are put away, they have the first chance to be able to do that because every time a phone gets picked up, it cuts off communication and safety of the conversation. This is a bigger issue. This is a human issue. Let's see. Our concern needs to be about our children's mental health, their ability to communicate and advocate for what they need. We have a humanitarian connection and relationship crisis in this country, and technology has stolen it. And yes, there are many benefits to technology, and I'm not saying that. I've had many great discussions with people about the benefits of technology. It is a tool, and when we use it that way, it's wonderful. The problem is that media addiction is real, and it's impacting our kids' learning and their relationships. My daughter says, if there's a shooter, Mom, don't you want me to be able to call you and tell you that I love you? And I say, yes, of course. But more important to me right now is A, that you know that I love you, and B, that you learn to sit with the distress of not having a phone to go to in the lunchroom, to make eye contact and communication with other kids and build deep relationships. It will be hard, just like I think back to graduation when parents were irate during COVID that we weren't allowed to have our graduation, and we did the car parade, and then the next year everyone was irate that we weren't keeping the car parade. It takes time. Change is hard, and it will be weeks, but we will all get through it. And we will build this muscle. We need it in our professional life. They need it in their professional lives and in their personal lives. And Wilton is giving our kids that chance. We have always been a thought leader nationwide, and I am proud that we are continuing this legacy. We can't let fear drive the bus. We have to step in and help our kids. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Hi, my name is Alice Nichols. I live on 55 Catalpa Road, and I'm here as junior class president to speak on behalf of my peers. And I'd first like to state that as the Wilton High School Executive Board, we are bias-free. But I also would like to state that while I think it is important to learn to be comfortable without our phones, I also think it's important for teenagers to learn this skill on their own and it not being forced upon them, because I think that a lot of time it can be seen that when something like this is completely taken away against their will, it leads to abuse in the future. When they go to college, their phone isn't going to be locked in a pouch all day, and they're going to have to be able to have the skill to know when to put it away and know when to have it out. So I think it's important to learn that skill and to show the kids in Wilton High School that we trust their better judgment. I think along the lines of trust, a lot of students were also really blindsided by this new rule that's being imposed, or being like people are trying to impose. And I think that that's caused a lot of rumors. So first of all, I think there's going to be a lot of pushback, obviously. And I think that a lot of students are just going to initially find ways to break the rules, which is obviously not what we want. We don't want to have children like learning how to break the rules and them focusing on that instead of learning themselves why they should want to put their phones away and why they should be able to know when to put their phones away. Sorry, I have a very long list of notes, so I'm trying to condense them. So there's also a lot of concerns with students with learning difficulties or disabilities during their free periods. Listening to music is really, really important for focus and a lot of other things that can only be accessed on the phone a lot of the time. That's a huge concern for not even just students with learning disabilities, but students who are used to those things to focus, because students in my grade and the grade above me, we've gone to Wilton High School for 3 years now, and it's been a certain way. And obviously it's important to be okay with change, but a change like this can feel really abrupt and drastic and force students to completely change the way they view school or act in school. And so there are a few positives seen by students. More engagement, obviously, more interpersonal relationships. It's easier to prevent cheating. But there also are a lot of positive uses of phones currently, such as taking pictures of boards, a lot of Sports U, getting updates about sports and other extracurriculars during school, communicating with parents, etc. And, sorry. There's also a lot of concerns with flow, getting in and out of school, how it would work with returning the phones, getting them back and everything. And students who want to leave their phones at home, how would they be able to do that without administration thinking that they're simply keeping it on their person? grade. There are medical concerns, students who need their phones for medical reasons, such as diabetes or other things that people need their phones for, allergic reactions, and obviously a lot of safety concerns from parents specifically with contacting their children. And we just feel that a big issue is banning the phones isn't going to effectively solve a lot of the problems it's aiming to solve, both because of students are always going to find a way around something if they want to badly enough, and also like with cheating, they'll find other ways to cheat with their phone, and they'll find other ways, and that's a big problem. So I think instead the school should be nurturing a student's better judgment and nurturing their ability to willingly keep their phone away. So yeah, that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm also from the student government. My name is Grant Stein. I live on 37 Riders Lane. I'm the executive vice president of the board. And I'm just going to kind of connect what Alice said and as well as what I said. Just for like a little bit of the negatives, I know both speakers touched a little bit on, school safety, school, if a school shooter came in, that's a real threat, especially in today's, today's social life. And, when we believe, you guys are standing on that board and, you guys, there's not a single high schooler there, and that could be part of, that's because we have maljudgment. But I think what you need to understand is you don't know the life of a high schooler, and yeah, they are, technology can be, there can be bad services for technology, but what we learned and from taking surveys from students consistently is that students, when they're forced into a position, that lack communication, lack safety, and lack privacy, they're going to rebel rather than listen. That is, we've seen it before, and we're going to continue to see it again. This is one of the biggest kind of changes to Wilton High School, what I believe, in the past couple years. So students would rather, rebel, and what that brings with rebelling is not really support from the school community. The students and the teachers, students and the staff, will not be as connected as they were right now. But there are some positives. Lunch periods, in between periods throughout the day, we've heard from a bunch of students that, all at their lunch table, all they want to do is kind of talk, but everybody's playing games, everybody's on social media. And I think that could be one of the positives, as well as cheating. But I think one of the main problems with cheating is that, and all these kind of problems, is that what we have right now in our school, in basically every single classroom, is a phone caddy. And throughout the past 3 years, we have been enforcing the phone caddy. But I think the problem with that is teachers, when you really look at the problem, teachers, they either lack the need of a phone caddy, the want to do a phone caddy, but what we've seen as the biggest solution, without putting our phones in pouches with magnets that have to be unlocked for 7 hours a day, is that if teachers just take attendance from a phone caddy perspective, and this is a solution, not the solution, but that can wipe out cheating, because now there's no more phones. Lunch problems, wanting to talk with their friends, they can keep the phones in the caddy. Putting malphones in. A lot of students, just about being from school, we can all kind of attest that they were going to put fake phones. They were going to find a way to do this. But with a phone caddy, it's easy to see in between a calculator and a phone. So we think that that's a solution that could kind of take away all the stress from, stress from not only the parents but also the students. And just one last point to talk about is, with talking, being around the school, there was a lot of things like, these yonder pouches, right? What needs to be given to get these yonder pouches? They talked a lot about money. And then, it started trickling down, like people started rebelling against the yonder pouches. Like people, like this isn't really a resolution. This is more of a warning. If you enforce this, then the rebellion, it's only going to get worse, and that's what we believe as a student body. But as a student executive board, we are unbiased.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? What? Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, you can come up if you'd like.
I guess I have a couple, and I just want to take a different tack. I completely respect everything you and other people know about mental health, and I don't pretend to be a psychologist or a teacher. But I am involved in technology, and I am concerned that what Jonathan Haidt says doesn't actually deal with the pace and rate of change and the revolution that technology is bringing. And that ultimately focusing on cell phones isn't going to solve your problem. I think in Wilton, everybody would agree that we should have more play and unstructured free time. I think access to phones and social media should be age-gated. But in Wilton, we sent our children to a play-based nursery school. One of them was Pamela Ely's. Are we going to add play into the district curriculum? Because I would certainly hope that if you're going to do one part of the prescription that Haidt has sort of prescribed, that you would do the other ones as well. That we did wait till 8 for a cell phone, as many of our friends did. We did not have any access to social media. In fact, it was a requirement from the Wilton High School that my kids have an Instagram account and a Facebook account for sports and Sports U. I don't know what you're going to do about those interactive sports programs. We and other people, I think Wilton, fully embraced the Let Grow movement, and I think we are all very happy to let our kids wander more freely. So I think we've done a lot of what Jonathan Haidt has already said, and I think the one thing that he's ignoring by focusing on cell phones is that technology is going to get faster and faster and more abnormal in the future. And in fact, abnormal is probably the new normal. So I think our kids are relatively comfortable in the tech space. It's us that are not. And you say that we can't teach our children how to deal with this, but the reality is we do need to teach them how to adapt and how to change. My kids go to bed late because they got so much work, not because they are caught on their phones. My son, we negotiated a really complicated algorithm with him where he has to play the piano and do homework in order to use his computer for gaming. He's got quite good at the piano and also gaming. So there are ways of teaching our kids how to deal with this. My concern is that if we start with an overly restrictive approach, there'll be exceptions. There'll be exceptions for medical reasons, for anxiety, for athletes, for science experiments, for brainstorming pictures, for submitting music that you're playing, for having minority groups get support with each other, and more and more and more, for junior privileges, for senior privileges. We're going to make exceptions and exceptions and exceptions. So rather than start with an exceptional approach, why don't we start with a less restrictive and more reasonable approach where we take away phones in class, we put them in caddies, we start from there and we see how we go. The concerns that I think you have raised and the key concerns that in discussions that have come up is that people take photographs and they take recordings and then they use these on social platforms and things. And cell phones are ubiquitous, they're easy and ready to use. So it's easy to say the cell phones are the problems, but the reality is all of that activity will just take place out of school. We're still not overcoming bullying, we're still not overcoming abusive behavior, we're still not teaching kids how to deal with technology. And we need to, I think meaningfully, and the school needs to lead on this, is work how we're going to have our kids address future technology changes and have a really healthy respect for it have a relationship with it, as you call it. I watched a TED Talk with Jonathan Haidt. He said that college kids are isolated and still are stuck with their technology and are not talking to people. So college kids haven't learned anything yet. They haven't learned from school, they haven't learned in college, and they still have the same problems. So at some point we've got to get to grips with this, because it's not changing. We're going to have implants in our brains next telling us, what's on the internet or whatever. The cell phone isn't the problem. It's a symptom, it's not the cause. We need to address the cause.
Thank you. Can I just ask, please, just for the record, your name and address?
Michael Pettit, 30 Springbrook Lane.
Thank you very much.
I was
Appreciate
also
it.
involved in the communications industry for many years, and I can tell you, we don't know what names like Ericsson, Motorola, and Nokia. Kids here probably never even heard of them. Have you? Have you heard of those things? Some of the biggest companies in the world, they almost don't exist today. Change is quick and it's fleeting. So,
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? I'm not missing anyone.
I don't think so.
Thank you all. Consent agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review the consent agenda?
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Nicola. Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Reports and recognition. First up, Wilton Youth Council.
Great. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us tonight. I'm Kim Hall and was recently elected the chair of the Wilton Youth Council, and with me also is one of our new vice chairs, Carolyn Lyon. We are so happy to be able to share with you our upcoming year of vibrant planning that we've got going. And it's particularly appropriate to be here today because it's World Mental Health Day. So, sorry, Lucille, I totally got ahead of you. You can go to the next one, please. Thank you. Our mission is really to focus on the well-being of our students, and we do that by empowering our youth, parents, and community. We focus on helping our students grow, our parents connect, and our community organizations collaborate effectively. In the past year, we had over 14,000 touch points with our community of students, parents, and partners, which is the equivalent of 40 touch points per day. And they're usually focused on a handful of key activities, the first of which is fostering collaboration. Collaboration is at the heart of what we do. We know that a healthier community improves student well-being, and that we can do more together than we can in each of our respective silos. So we focus a lot on effective collaboration, largely by hosting the Coalition for Youth meetings, one of which occurred earlier today, that build partnership and skills for our youth-serving organizations, and by working with a wide array of partners for specific programs. This year, the Coalition's really excited about our Wilton is Where You Belong campaign that kicked off at the very successful volunteer fair in September, and this awesome logo that was done by a Wilton High School student on either side of the picture. One of our high school art students made that for us. And one of the areas where our collaboration shows up on the next slide is in starting conversations. We work hard to bring people together for programs that encourage connection over timely topics facing our youth. Last year's Jenny Wallace event is a good example of how we do this. In partnership with a number of others, including the schools and Vanessa's Thrive with a Guide, we brought her to speak to a packed house at Wilton Library. This was a starting point, and then we layered on extra opportunities for smaller group connections through roundtables, book discussions, and piloting a Mattering Movement parent group. This year we have a full calendar of exciting programs. Two that are coming up in a couple weeks are a panel discussion and Q&A called Together for Teens, where we're bringing together 4 experts, a pediatrician, Rebecca LePage, a teen kids in crisis counselor, and 2 coaches to talk about the top issues that they see impacting our teens, and there'll be an opportunity for parents to ask questions as well. The second event to highlight is the Gift of Failure Author Talk with Jessica Leahy. This one we're doing in partnership with a number of Ridgefield organizations, including Project Resilience. And it's really focused on topics about how failure or challenges really help lead our kids to success, including the link between frustration tolerance and entitlement, and how to foster motivation in our kids. I think Michael Pettit's probably got that nailed with his piano lessons. And so you can find all of our October and November programs on our website. But next semester we have a full agenda too, including a great program with Susan Bauerfelt for our parents of kindergarten through fifth grade, of kids in kindergarten through fifth grade, where parents can connect and build community in small group programs. And this building community is a key part of us delivering our mission as we work to bring folks together to help them find and make connections in our community. Some of these are done like the Volunteer Fair, which was a very successful inaugural event. We had over 20 organizations and 350 people coming to find a way to plug into our community and to make connections here that help them find a sense of belonging. We also do class project events that help parents with older kids meet and mingle with other parents in their child's grade. And last year we started piloting some non-class-based community options. We started with Coffee and Conversation, which is a no-commitment drop-in coffee meetup. And this year we're growing those efforts with 2 new programs. Family fun events, which will be for our families with younger kids. And the first one will be a family paint night where parents and kids get to paint together and with other families. And the other one is Dads and Donuts, an event led by one of our dad board members and focused on dads getting time to hang and connect with their kid while their kids enjoy free play. Community-wide, we're also really excited about the upcoming Community Cultural Fair. For students, we really focus in 2 areas: celebrating safely and supporting our students. Celebrating Safely was the focus of the Youth Council's original program, which is the post-graduation party. We know that encouraging healthy decision makers is easy when kids have access to substance-free social events. So we've evolved to offer more in this area over time, including student-driven opportunities through Youth to Youth, like the ski trips that people know about from Middlebrook, and other opportunities via class projects and PGP, which are a labor of love for our parent volunteers. And also, we support our students through school-based partnerships and class projects. For class projects, this usually shows up as service opportunities to serve with other students in their grade. And at our partnership programs, they vary depending on the program. So Youth to Youth is focused on offering participants a chance to practice leadership by initiating and executing student-led social activities and through service opportunities. And another program, Peer Connection, is really about taking those students who've been identified as natural helpers and helping them build their listening and communication skills while also equipping them to take care of their own wellness. And wellness is our last but not least thing that we work to do through a range of activities and partnerships, whether it's our coalition trainings like the QPR, which is a research-backed suicide prevention training that's sort of like first aid for suicide prevention, to Mental Health Action Month programming like our screening of Inside Out, or events like the Color Dash. And we bring awareness through initiatives like the pinwheel display last spring. I found this really moving. I hadn't realized myself how many calls we get from Wilton every year to the state hotlines, and every one of those over 250 green pinwheels represents a call that was made from a Wilton home to one of the 2 state hotlines dealing with mental health and addiction. The white ones are the way that the state estimates how many calls were made, or to how many other people were likely impacted or made calls to private organizations or for private assistance. And we also handed out over 2,000 green ribbons and worked with some of our local legislators and town council folks on the mental health proclamation. So thank you so much for an opportunity to share with you. The last thing I wanted to end with is gratitude. So not only do we appreciate the opportunity to be here and share a little bit about us and what's coming up this year, but we are so grateful for your partnership in support of the youth. There are so many things that the school district has done to help encourage the health of our kids and ways that they support that both in and out of the classroom, and we are so grateful for that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Carolyn or I, or to check our website as well. And Vanessa would like me to point out that we are a completely independent, private nonprofit that receives no funding from the town.
Where can people make donations?
On the website.
Willmute.org.
Your volunteer fair was great.
Oh, thank
it was
you.
good.
Just really great. So many people were there, and so many agencies were there, and it was just really a wonderful day.
It was such a great example of how the partnership works, because
Yeah.
I have to tell you, a lot of the partners were like, I'm not sure it's going to be worth my time. Is anybody going to show up? And everybody took the leap of faith together and showed up, and then the people really came.
Yep.
We can't thank the library enough for opening their doors to host that event as
It was
well.
well done, and it was nicely done, and it was just a great day.
Yeah.
Really good.
And I make my rounds to PTA meetings throughout the month, and there's definitely been parents who said, I found my way here after one of your coffees that you have at Tuscan Cup Monthly. So I think it's just, I know that's a newer outlet for you all, but it's just been a nice kind of full circle moment where I'm just seeing more people get involved. So that's been really great.
Oh, good. Thank you.
And how did you get Susan Barrowfeld?
We're very lucky. She's actually doing 2 events for us this year. She's doing the program for the younger kids, but she's also coming back to do the college process, which is actually the event that got me first connected to Youth Council many moons ago when I went to it for my son, because it's really focused on how to go through that process without losing your mind or killing your child, which is really critical. I mean, that's not what she would say. She would say,
Skill building.
but
She's very good at both those things.
and you know, it's a hard time for a lot of families.
And she's terrific.
And it just helped give me some ideas to approach it differently in a way that really helped. And now that he's at college, I'm much smarter and nicer than apparently I was before he left. It's great, the change in perspective.
It's nice to see that in your kid.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just say that don't feel like you have to stay, guys.
Thank you.
Allison Grant, also, unless you want to, don't feel like you have to stay.
thank
We
you.
appreciate your comments earlier. Lucille, will you pull up my slides, please? So a little show and tell is part of my superintendent's report. You all got an email from me, probably a little over a week ago. There was about an hour on an afternoon in my inbox. It was just great. And so this was the first of a sequence of notifications I received, so I just thought I'd share this with you as part of our update. As you're well aware, Niche is an organization, and they do all kinds of school and college rankings. This year, for 2025, the Wilton Public Schools was ranked number 3 out of 120 districts here in Connecticut, and number 70 out of 10,500 or so across the country. So that's a real feather in the cap for all of us. Some other notes that I pulled from their rankings website. Here in Connecticut, Wilton was ranked as the number 4 of 134 best places to teach, number 78 out of 11,000 in the country, best places to teach. So, pretty great. And then folks in the room, districts with, we know this already, right? District with the best teachers, we were ranked number 5 out of 131 and number 87 out of 11,000. So again, there's all kinds of data that gets fed into this, but we do look at these. It's one small point of comparison as we're just trying to assess our health and progress, and we're doing really well. And so I just thought this was when it rolled through my inbox at about 2:30 or so a week ago. I thought, I'm going to share that. That's great. So what's the next one? Yeah, this came through in like 5 minutes afterwards. So there's a website called the 74million.org. It's an online media publication that focuses on education. And this media organization analyzed third grade proficiency rates around the country. So I went and looked at ours, and I don't know if you can see it, all the way at the very top is the Wilton Public Schools. Okay, we're up there with New Canaan, Weston, Westport, but that's every district in the state. And so again, another kind of external indicator of our, relative strength compared to like schools and districts. So that came in about 5 minutes after the niche, and then this came in about 5 minutes after that. So this actually, Linda Ciliberti here at the high school is our AP coordinator, and she forwarded this on. And so you had heard from Chuck and team earlier this month that we had very, very strong performance on the AP exams this last year. 97% of the kids scored 3 or better, making them eligible for college credit. And, consequently, we were added to the 2024 AP Honor Roll. So congratulations again to your fine team and to all of our kids. So that was a really good inbox afternoon. Do you want to go ahead and bring me up the next one? More recently, as part of the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, we learned that 19 of our high school students were recognized as commended students. I won't read all their names, but you can see them there. So we want to, again, congratulate our high school students for just tremendous academic performance on this particular assessment. And then just a few upcoming events. There are 3. The first, next week on the 16th from 6:30 to 8:30 over here at the Fieldhouse, we'll have our annual college fair. We have 120 plus, I think, that have confirmed attendance. If you haven't been, this is always a really powerful night for young kids as they begin that process. Right? I know. You've got that too. So if you're new at it, just, take a deep breath.
Take a breath.
It'll be great. But it really, lots and lots of kids and families come and attend. We also wanted to just ask you to save the date. On Sunday, October 27th at 4 p.m., the Wilton Education Foundation is sponsoring a basketball game. So we'll have the Harlem Wizards here. They'll be playing some of our staff and teachers. I will not be playing. I'm volunteered to keep score. I don't know if you're going to dust off your sneakers, Dr. O'Donnell.
We'll see.
This is a wonderful event, great opportunity for our community, very family friendly, and a terrific fundraising opportunity for the Wilton Education Foundation that does so much to support our staff and our schools and our students. And last but not least, get your tickets now because they're going to sell out. We are the only high school in Connecticut that has earned the rights to put on Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I having a conversation with Kevin Slater earlier this week, and I cannot wait. It's going to be a phenomenal production. We've got all kinds of things planned at some of the lower schools in anticipation of this. I understand Starter Mill's having a Harry Potter Day on November 8th. So anyway, tickets are going to sell out fast, so we might have to push them to do a 4th day because I think that it's going to be in demand, but I just wanted to offer that. And then just last 2 things, no show and tell on these next 2. Just kind of, more businessy kind of stuff. A week ago, Patrick had reached out and just asked some questions about My School Bucks. So My School Bucks is our primary payment system that we use for just paying for school lunches. Their fees are serious, and so he asked, "Is there, can we look at this? Is there anything else we can do?" We've made a study of these, programs and looked for alternatives in the past, but I'm just going to put him together with Patrick. If anyone else wants to join him in that conversation, we'll just go back and do another examination to see if there are better tools or, more cost-effective tools. So I just wanted to make you aware that that's happening. And then just so you're aware, beginning I think tomorrow or Saturday, as you know, we've just had some ongoing technical issues in this room between we have kind of 2 separate systems running. We have the system that our students run, and then we have Zoom, and sometimes they don't play nice just given the way the pipelines work. So we're replacing the technology in this room over the weekend. By the next board meeting, we should have a very different setup, and hopefully at that point we'll be able to take more public comment and public viewing from Zoom again, and be able to clean up some of the conflicts, the technological conflicts we've had in the last 6, 8, 10 months here. So just an FYI on that. That's it.
Thank you. No board chair report this meeting, and so we can move to our financials. Welcome.
So, first month is down for students being back in the buildings.
We got a lot of work done over the summer months in preparation for the school year, and we're continuing some projects that were not finished. In September, we got some bad news that we lost our Title I funding, and I think it was all of the Title IV, or at least some of Title IV. It comes out to about $115,000, which is problematic when we're already in school and the money is used to pay for staff to do some very important programs. So we have managed to work out a way that we can cover it for this year, but just so that you guys are aware, as we're putting together the budget for next year, we will be planning on incorporating that into the budget with the assumption that we're not going to have it next year.
Why did we lose it?
It has to do with a very convoluted equation that the federal government uses, drawing information from a multitude of resources, and basically we dropped below what they considered to be the minimum poverty line that you have to meet within the town. So normally you have to be at a 2% threshold. We came in below that, so we lost the funding. It's nothing that we have any control over because they pull it from the Census Bureau and from several other sources from within the town.
Yeah, it was a surprise, Pam, and
It was
we,
a big
this is, funds that we've had forever, and so that I've been looking into just trying to better understand why the change happened, and to the point Lila just made a second ago, we can look back at trend and the poverty rate. It's not anything to do with kids in our school per se. It's the number of kids between ages 5 and 17 that are in poverty set at the federal government's threshold, and so that number has been steadily declining. But and they take 2022 numbers from 21 to 22, there was like a 50% drop off, and so that 50% drop off. So in 21 there were 121 or so kids in that category. For 22 there were like half of that, 60. It just, when you look at the pattern, it just doesn't make sense. It's an extreme fall off. So we called the Census Bureau, and they directed me to their website, and there was a FAQ. We called the folks at the State Department who kind of share that information. We had a conference call, I guess last week, just trying to understand, and that person just came up empty-handed. And so it's a statistical model that's used with annual inputs, including tax returns. So we're now trying to get a contact in Jim Heim's office to get somebody, so we can get a person on the phone who can actually look at the the specific inputs, because the change doesn't make sense, and it doesn't comport with what we're seeing in terms of the numbers of kids that are the growing number of kids eligible for free and reduced lunch. One of the things that the state government and this FAQ on this formula said is that those are different measures, and so we accept that, but just if you kind of step back and think about trends and patterns, that it doesn't line up. And so I'm just not satisfied with like, oh well, sorry, you fell below.
Yeah.
There's only Darien is the only other community that we could see that was also zeroed out that fell below the threshold. So it's strange, and we're going to continue to try to get a clear answer about why, and then we'll see what happens going forward.
But we want to be prepared for it, and hopefully we'll get it back next year, and maybe it was an error somewhere, right? We are anticipating right now that the excess cost is going to be similar to last year's reimbursement, so we have calculated that if you look on the sheets that I provided. Also, you'll notice on the sheets that with Munis, with the way that we set things up, it does break some of the categories out with a little bit more detail than what you had previously, particularly like in transportation and some of the other areas. So you may notice if you're like comparing it to one of the sheets from last year that there's more detailed information on it. So we're hoping that that'll be helpful for you guys as well going forward into the year.
Thank you.
So just in the transfers, we just transferred the salary HVAC to the actual HVAC work, is that what?
Yes.
We did that
okay.
2 years in a row. We're
Okay.
anticipated, we actually thought we had a viable candidate who this happened 2 years in a row. Where
Right.
there was a viable candidate, and then
Okay.
they went back and, renegotiated with their current employer.
Okay. So we're just transferring that to
we're
the
not
transferring
to the
it
work,
to the
still
contract.
To the
needs-
contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
To the contract. Okay.
Another thing that you'll probably, I have a feeling, notice more of this year is Mary Ann and I are making a concentrated effort to make sure that things are being charged where they should be charged, so that way when we do the budgeting, we're budgeting appropriately in those areas. So there may be some transfers that come throughout the year where we're going to be moving the money where it actually should be. So then that way going forward, it will be where it needs to be.
Okay. And to better estimate
Yeah,
moving
that way
forward.
we have
Yes.
a better handle
Better
on where we're
forecast.
spending the money.
Yeah. Okay. And do you want to address the forecast?
You got it.
Thank you.
So we have been working on putting together a forecast for fiscal '26. It's not finalized yet, but I can paint you a picture in broad brushstrokes. Today, bottom line, we're looking at a year-over-year budget change of about 5.89% increase if all things remain the same. So this is preliminary. I anticipate it'll probably come down some, but some of the drivers continue to be wages. The total wage line, we're anticipating about a 4.1% increase. Medical is pretty modest. We're anticipating just under a 6% increase, which is actually really good. If you look at previous increases experienced by other districts. So that's fairly modest. In the kind of the rest of the benefits combined, we're looking at about a 5.77%. Utilities, we're anticipating right now about a 3.25% increase. That's a number that we have to go back and look at, just in kind of zero in on diesel fuel. We've been engaged in a study around all of our phone lines, and so I'm hoping to get some good news. I think we have a number of lines that we may not need, and so if we can eliminate those, it's not going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it might be thousands of dollars that we can save if we can reduce some lines. Sped tuition is forecasted to increase by about 14%, and then our total transportation line, we're forecasting just over 6%. So that's STA plus all the private transportation. STA, we have a 1-year contract with them right now, and so we've got a meeting with STA. We've invited them to come and present a proposal for us to consider, and so we'll see kind of what that looks like, and then we'll have to decide going forward. If it's a very competitive proposal, do we want to stick with STA, or do we want to go through a more formal bid process and go see what the marketplace looks like? They've been a good partner for us for a long time, and the last time we did this, they were very competitive. So I'm optimistic that they want to continue to serve us here. So, as I said, the total is about 5.89. We're anticipating, if you go back to some of the contracted salary increases across the bargaining units, WASA is just over 3%. AFSCME is 2.75. UPSU is 2.6. We're estimating our discretionary to be somewhere between 2.5 and 3, which is about where they've been for the last number of years. And then the WEA, that's really based on step movement, so it's variable year to year, and as we get through some more payrolls and then finalize that, we'll actually have a total percent increase. So that's what I have for you today in terms of forecasting, and we'll continue as we refine leading into the budget process. As we get better inputs, we'll come back and just refine that number.
Is this what's currently been shared with or will be shared with the Board of Finance?
Yeah,
as
when
they deliberate?
It was the 5.89 number I gave to them several weeks ago when I joined them at their
Okay.
meeting back. I think that was in earlier September.
And the bus contract kind of look at, what's the timing? Is that before, is it this winter, like before we move into?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That would definitely impact. We have the opportunity
Okay.
to impact the budget for sure.
Okay. Any other questions on the budget forecast? Okay. Wilton High School Spotlight.
Hey, you absolutely didn't see that around the corner, did you?
I swear.
Whoa.
Oh my God. The sky is just, it's magenta. And it's following me down the street. And
Okay.
That is not the Wilton High School spotlight.
That was somebody who had themselves on mute.
Is everybody on mute now?
Yes.
Fantastic.
It was,
Now,
that wasn't.
with that brief interlude.
Slideshow.
Matt, welcome back. So we can't wait to hear about your Costa Rica trip this summer.
So we're proud to have Matt Hoyt here again to talk about Costa Rica. Brian will talk about the course catalog, and then I'm going to share some highlights of the class of 2024, our outstanding graduation class. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us. Okay, so what you're seeing is the slideshow, the truncated slideshow, so to speak. I think there was about 4,000 pictures that were taken during this trip. On June 24th, we tried to get out JFK. On June 25th, we finally got out JFK, and we made it to Costa Rica with 14 intrepid travelers, one of which is Andy McMahon, sitting next to me, who was able to go with us. And as you guys have seen in the past, and as you guys can see as we go through this, the activities range are so varied, it's ridiculous. We started out doing homestays. We ended up doing a service project in which we built them, the village that we stay in, we built a new bus stop. Some of these students had never actually used a power tool in their life, which was quite amusing and quite entertaining. But we had highs, we had lows, we had lots of food, we had birthdays, we had zip lining, we had Tarzan swinging, we had Mr. Amaro being exhausted as well as the rest of the chaperones. As you can imagine, there's not a whole lot of sleep on these types of trips, but we absolutely love it. And I think that pictures are worth 1,000 words, so it's easier for me just to show you the local flora and fauna and the students that enjoyed it, and then have the student themselves or herself come and speak to you, so to hear it directly from their perspective rather than mine.
I loved it. I had a great time. I knew two of the chaperones really well, Mr. Hoyt and Mr. Amaro, and then I got to meet Mrs. Salta, who's also amazing. We just had a great time. They tell you before you leave, like, oh, it's life-changing, and everyone's like, will it actually be? I'd say it was. I experienced a lot of new things that changed me a little as a person, I'd say. Like, living in the homestays, very different than what I was used to, but I really enjoyed it, and I like seeing like the culture that they have, and that's all I got.
What was one of the highlights for you?
My top two favorite things were homestays, and the rafting.
It's really one of those experiences that it's difficult to put in words. I always tell the parents and the students before they leave that I can try to explain what motivated means, but until you're actually in the middle of it, you don't know. And you come back and you just kind of internalize it in your own way. And these students were incredibly brave to get through it. We made chocolate. We stayed in homes where they didn't speak English at all. We ate strange foods. We had one of the greatest bus drivers ever. That was our bus ride home on the last night. We fished with natives. We hiked to native tribes. As you can see, we basically exhausted it. All resources, and we exhausted everybody as they went through it. So we appreciate your support. Hopefully, the ongoing support in the future. I think this year we already have 12 students signed up.
Wow.
But as I was speaking to one of the mothers who was back here, her son was going on it, and she recognized when it came out that this was going to go fast. And I think within the first 2 hours of announcing it, we had doubled our numbers.
Wow.
Not everybody ends up going because they realize the costs and it's a little sticker shock. But it's one of those experiences that's very special to the chaperones that go and to the students that end up traveling with us.
Do you all stay in separate homes?
So we pair or triple the students up, and they stay with individual families in a one-road town, which is a farming village, and we bookend them. And the owner of the company actually lives in this town. And these families will say, your first day, mi casa, su casa. And every year I come back, and all I do is walk down the road and hug everybody.
Yeah, I bet.
It's an amazing place. So if you ever get a chance to go yourself, I highly encourage you to do it because it's a special place.
No, that's phenomenal. I always love, hearing you asking for approval and then the full circle moment of seeing what happens. When you come back, and every year you can just see in the pictures the faces on the kids and the experience that they have and the life-changing elements of it. So it's truly a wonderful opportunity.
It's the easiest marketing tool on the planet.
So what's a typical day?
One to answer. Very early, usually we're up with the families. Fathers leave at about 4:15 in the morning. It's about 6:15 our time. We help them prepare breakfast. We are out doing service projects first thing so we can beat the heat. This year we did the bus station. Then we come home for lunches. After lunch we usually play soccer. And playing soccer at about 6,000 feet is really difficult, especially for old guys like me, which is quite amusing. Everybody has a good laugh. Then we have dinner with them. We do a fiesta, so we do a party usually in the evening. Then we do some sort of visitation, whether it's the house, the host family is teaching us to cook, teaching us salsa dancing, teaching us crafting. That's when we're at the homestay. So those first 2 days are chock full, and I think the kids get a real taste. This is not your average 5-star vacation. You are completely off the grid, and for the most part, we don't see cell phone use in the respect that we don't have cell phone service.
I'm sure you don't.
And I think that's one of the most rewarding for a lot of these kids is that you really do see them go back to being human.
Yeah.
We saw kids playing chess. We saw kids telling stories. One night when we were there, we had ghost stories, which didn't work out perfectly, but it worked out. Even when we had poor weather, there was nothing but smiles. And there's a lot of camaraderie that's built, and these kids are special to us in many ways, even prior to going, but now more so.
It's great.
Thank you for coming and sharing with us. We look forward to you coming this winter and asking for another go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, this is never a good spot. It's never good to follow our students in that way, but I'll be talking to you about some pragmatic things, I guess. Definitely not as exhilarating as that. So I do have a paper copy for you, and then Lucille, I can certainly furnish these for you as well. So if you could just take one and pass it. So we were asked just to give an update about our course catalog, or our courses that we offer, really. And over the past few years, we've been talking about all of the new courses that we propose and then get approved by you, our 6141 process. And so we thought that we came up with a good way of explaining just how dynamic the process is. So what we did was we just created very similar documents to what we had last year to show you, just so that we can explain to you that we are attentive to whether or not the courses that we propose get off the ground, whether or not they have some staying power. And then there's also been a lot of discussion about, well, with all of these new courses, what are you doing about some of the other ones? Are you weeding the garden, so to speak, or weeding the courses out of the program of study? So two things to talk about with you. related to those. And maybe I'll just wait until they all make their. So the first sheet, I think that would be useful for us to take a look at is this one with the very tiny font. But we get everything on the one sheet by looking at it this way. So with the help of our registrar, Sandy Lund, with the great help of Sandy Lund, we put this together. So as you can see, over on the left-hand side, those are all the courses that we've proposed in the last 6 years. So we tracked the 6 years. That's a pretty good range of time for us to see how well the courses are doing. And if you move to the right, it's also showing you in reverse order, just like from top to bottom. It goes from what we approved and what we're running in 24, 25. From top to bottom, it also goes from left to right. So an interesting way to take a look at it, after explaining that, is, just for example, if we went down to the year 19 and 20, right, 2019 and 2020. So just for example, that was the year that we first ran data structures and algorithms. And so if you go all the way over to the right, the first year of that was, again, in that 1920 column all the way to the right. 17 students were enrolled as of October 1st that year. If you now move backwards to the left, the next year in 2021 school year, that was 31, right? So we increased the number of students there. If you move again another set of columns over to the left, we wound up with 31 students again on October 10th. The next year in 22-23, we had 16 students in that course. In 23-24, last year we had 18, and this year we've seen a bit of an uptick to 20. So what does that tell us, right? So for example, just with that one class, that lets us know that we started out with a healthy number, we expanded it, and it did have a retraction, but the retraction is still something that would be enough to say that the course requests that we get and the number of students that we put in that class, it's a viable course to run. So, for example, is that a course that seems to have some lasting power? Did we make a good decision with approving that, with proposing it and approving it? The fact that we still have interest and students are still enrolling in it, I think is a good way to answer that with yes. So, I'll just stay in that last bottom column just because you see more data there than you do in the other ones because they're furthest away from us in time. If you take a look at the course Executive Functioning for College and Beyond, that started off with 15 students, dropped to 9. Again, I'm reading from right to left here, right? We started with 15 students the first year, dropped to 9 again, and then the past 3 years, we did not have enough requests from students to run it, and so that's why there's a 0 there, because we did not run those courses. We usually use a general rule of 10 for requests. If we don't have students above the number of 10 to request a course, we won't run it. So again, good course in theory, but has it had its lasting staying power? Did it have legs according to enrollment numbers? So that's just a few different things for you to take a look at. No need to necessarily have a full analysis of it right now, but that should be interesting to you to see what are the fruits of the 6141 labors or our course proposal and approval process. And the only other thing I'll say about that column is that that sheet, over on the right-hand side, you see that in red there, or pink, there's just some notations for the fact that we did not run certain courses in certain years because we did not have enough requests to even have that go from spring into the fall. So when we build our master schedule, starting in the springtime, if we don't have that threshold of 10, we won't even offer that class because it's not cost-effective way to operate the classes. For the most part, 99% of the classes are that way.
Sign language is very popular.
Extremely popular. And you know, there's something to be said for a logical rollout too, right? You
Yeah.
have the first year ASL 1, then next year you have that plus ASL 2, and then 3 and 4. So you have a pretty good consistent bubble that goes along a 4-year progression like that. And then at some point you do see a flattening out and just the legitimate requests and duration of it seems to flatten out after all of the courses make their way through.
So I guess it's interesting to me the physics 2 and the 2 and the 3 for the last 2 years that's been zeroed out. Is that the 2-3? That's the level. Is that
So we have physics
Right.
1, which is just your first year of physics.
physics? Okay.
And there's different levels for that, and those are not listed here. But
Okay.
our science department, Mr. Durkee and Ms. Tallman ran a 6141, proposed it a few years ago, for another year, a second year of physics
Okay.
for those students who are interested in it. And again, 2 levels, they would have been run concurrently in the same room, but
Okay.
2 levels of classes. And we just never got
The
it off the
traction.
ground
Okay.
because we didn't have more than 10 students requested.
Okay.
So that's a perfect example of, we approved the course, but did we have enough interest in it to actually run it? So
And so that typically would probably be someone who's like a junior or senior, right? Because if it's a second year of physics.
right,
Okay.
right.
But it's not an AP. It's not an AP. So,
No, and that one specifically was created so that physics could be offered for students that didn't
Want to take the
go
AP.
at the AP
Okay.
level, but were still interested in that branch of science. And worth the time, the teachers would say it was worth the time to make that offer, but we haven't had enough people biting on it yet. So I don't want to rush you looking at that, but that's a good time to pivot to the more colorful and better sized font sheet. So these are different groupings of courses that have been taken out of or have not been offered in our program of studies or as courses that we would run. So in the top one, the red and pink one, those are all courses that we dropped from the program of studies. And some of them have just been obsolete for a while. So one thing that we started doing last year was we said, are there any students in the building that could possibly have this on their transcript? If the answer was yes, we want to keep it in the program of studies in case there's a college, university, post-secondary institution that's wondering, well, what is that course? And they can find it easily. So, for example, digital literacy, general math, consumer math, discrete math, we did not have anybody in the building that had taken that recently enough to have it on their transcript at any time. So we weeded garden of those classes, so to speak. A few others here, we decided to get rid of the lower level classes and make more of a homogeneous grouping in the college prep class for, say, American Experience or Civics. So that's a reason for getting rid of the level 1 classes there. And then if you remember, last year there was a proposal to merge the area studies courses, and so that's why there's a slew of those Asian studies, Latin American studies, Middle Eastern studies, Russian studies, and African studies, because those all came off the books because this group approved the new one, which was the merger of all of those courses. So, that's what the pink shows. There are some other ones that, are listed from the previous year in green, same type of scenario and setup for how we chose to do that. And then in blue, which starts on the first side and goes to the second, those are all courses that we have on the books. So they are currently in this year's program of studies or a course that students could have requested, but we did not have enough requests from students during the registration process to actually run them. So you'll see some courses on there that you'll remember approving. We were hopeful that cybersecurity 1 and 2 would take off. Number 1 did have a chance to run. We did have more than 10 requests for it, so we ran the course. But cybersecurity 2, though, did not. And so we didn't run that because we didn't have at that time enough requests. So a pretty lengthy list of courses that just don't get run because we don't have enough interest when students are signing up. They stay on our books until we get to that time where maybe we think about removing them because they're not in any student transfers.
There is a true art and science to all this, to offer the courses and determine which ones you're going to run, the number of sections, and a couple of points, you can see we're being prudent in the courses that we cannot run. Question arises, are you removing courses? So you can see that we are, and then the final point I would make is that, we talk about each year, and we've said we're not increasing FTE, and we haven't. You might recall Dr. Smith last year saying, the high school has a number of new courses. We might need to add FTE, and we were able to actually offer the ones that were viable for running based on student enrollment. I mean, the students speak with their choices, and we didn't request any additional FTE. So we're very thoughtful. I think Brian and Sandy and the team do a really good job in making sure that we're creating opportunities for students, but if the enrollment isn't there, we won't run it, and it may be there in subsequent years. So it's an art and a science.
Yeah.
It really is.
But your prediction on AP psychology was correct, with over 100 kids.
Spot on. In
Yeah.
fact, we
Yeah.
probably had 20 or so more than we thought.
Yeah.
Students flocked to that one.
I know one who's loving it. Yeah, thank you. That's really
Thank you, that
helpful
was really
information.
great. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
About, so I'm looking at French and Latin. So the fact that there's 2 world languages where you're not running a level 1 course, I mean, that's going to feed down the years, right? So
Yeah,
it seems, is there a reason for that? Are the languages being advertised? Could they be advertised better at Middlebrook to pick? Because it seems a shame that we're not running a Latin 1 class.
Yeah, in fact, Max was actually at Middlebrook this last year in the couple weeks ago at the 7th and 8th grade open house, and he's going to come back around in January specifically to try to rebuild Latin 1.
I think we're advertising them well. We're advertising them equitably, which is important. You hit the nail on the head. The ASL program has been very robust, and we had long conversations about Latin, and we had 6 students requesting it. Now, we offered those students and families the option of doing it with a virtual high school opportunity, and a couple kids are doing that just to try to make sure we're still providing the opportunity. But that was a it was a logical decision because the enrollment isn't there, but it's a tough one for those of us who have appreciated that program over the years. French 1 has been it just historically has not been, to get it off the ground year 1 has been very limited. But the Latin was, a newer development.
Right. Most kids that come in from Middlebrook, though,
They
go
have
into French
the
too. Right. So they meet the one requirement.
French 2?
Yeah, so if they come in from Middlebrook, so that's kids who are starting French as freshmen, correct?
Yeah,
Or at any point in their high school career, but starting that language from the beginning?
Yeah, historically, the enrollment hasn't been there to start it as French 1 at the high school. We've looked at limited numbers and thought, can we combine some 1s and 2s, but it just hasn't worked. We keep telling Simon, for example, and Miriam, we'll continue to offer it, but the enrollment isn't there. And then Latin, you're making a good point. But we will offer it again, and there maybe there'll be a spike and get enrollment back up.
So it's just so, it fits in with so many other courses.
And he had a viable program going.
Yeah.
I've had plenty of conversations with Max about it, and he speaks with other Latin teachers and other high schools in the state. And there's a general concern about students and their declining interest in Latin. So he's trying to drum up as much business as he can because he certainly sees the value in it, and so do we.
Yeah. And we've had some, I think, going back a few years, we've had some students get into very prestigious colleges to study
classics,
language.
Yeah, he's an excellent teacher.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But you're also 100% accurate in saying if you lose the enrollment in a level 1 class for a world language, that's going to have repercussions for a couple of years. And that's not lost on anyone. We knew that was part of what we were going to be looking at this year. So our hope is that there's going to be enough interest, and that Latin 1 will be offered again next year.
Brian, I just caught French 2 is also on the list. So the kids that are coming out of Middlebrook
Usually start with us as 9th graders in French 3.
they go to 3.
So they accumulate enough French in the middle school or in the lower grades, I should say, and come to us starting in French 3. So our French 3, 4, 5 courses and our ECE French courses are still very well populated. It's just the level 1 and 2 where I guess that's a sign that there's not a lot of students who decide to switch to French once they get to the high school.
Yeah. And I guess the kids that are doubling up are choosing to double up with sign language.
It's a lot of ASL.
Yeah.
Interesting. It used to be more Latin, too.
Yes. Yeah.
That's very informative, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
On a celebratory note, you're going to be the first recipients of the reimagined, revised Wilton High School profile, because this is our class of 2024. We're going to talk briefly about that and share with you. We had the opportunity to talk with great enthusiasm about this class.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Dr. Smith. Would you guys like? So the objective here is to depict the class of 2024, and if you look in the lower left here, well, first of all, so this document goes out to colleges electronically. It goes out to colleges and universities that students apply to, and this is the first year that we've revised it in this format, and it's pretty catchy, right?
Yeah.
So there aren't very many hard copies, and you each have one here. So what I'd like to focus your attention on, if you look at the bottom left-hand quadrant here under student achievements, you can see the remarkable achievement and accomplishments of this class. You'll recall that these students were, number 1 in NGSS and 2 in math and 1 in EBRW. We already talked about that. But you can see there the number of National Merit finalists and commended students. We already talked about the SAT school day results in the previous testing results presentation. Dr. Smith showed you once again 97% of the students achieving a 3 or higher on the AP exams is unprecedented. We've always been in the high 80s, low 90s, so that is truly remarkable. A number of scholars with distinction and honors and AP scholars. Amazing accomplishments with the seal of biliteracy in the aforementioned languages, and then tied in with what we just talked, what Dr. Smith's going to talk about, just some of the involvement in athletics. So it was a really remarkably high-achieving class, and so a couple of things. If you ultimately want to do so, this QR code here will tell you all of the colleges the kids were accepted into, but I just want to share a couple of highlights because I think that was part of the purpose of what you were asking for here tonight. Just very briefly, some of the colleges and universities that these students are attending as we speak, and I'm sure lighting it on fire. I have a longer list, but I'll give you just Princeton, Stanford, Cornell, Dartmouth, UPenn, 2 students at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, Georgetown, NYU, Berkeley, U Chicago, Chapel Hill, St. Andrews, and Wash U in St. Louis. Those are just some of the ones that might be considered certainly higher tier colleges and universities, so we're very proud of that. And then I thought you might be interested in, you might be saying, well, what schools do the students attend most frequently? Logically, you might predict this. Anybody want to predict? UConn, okay. So we have 15 at UConn, 10 at Clemson, interestingly, 8 at Northeastern, 6 at Syracuse, 5 at TCU, 5 at Arizona, University of Arizona, 5 at Purdue, 5 at Bucknell, and 5 at The Ohio State University. So if you take a minute of your time, not now, but scan the QR code and you'll see the 151 colleges and universities, and I think you'll be duly impressed. I'd like to put a plug in for, I mean, our kids are remarkable, obviously, but the teachers in this district, they're top notch, and I think that speaks to the achievement. And also, there's a lot of work done with our school counselors, and also, if you don't know the name Sandy Atanasoff, she's our college and career counseling leader, and she gave me a lot of this information. She was actually one of the masterminds with Pam Scott behind reimagining this. So it's amazing what these kids have done. We're so proud of them. You heard me say last year, and Brian, of course, you know, they're actualizing our vision of a learner, and you want to talk about changing the world, and this is the work you're supporting as board members. These kids are remarkable, and picture now what they're doing at colleges, university, military, and career, and it's with this group, it's off the charts.
You love this class.
I always
We love all the classes.
I do love all of them, but we're so proud of them.
You talk about them very fondly.
Yeah. And also, to Ruth's point, also the class of 2025 is going to be amazing as well. So they're not here right now, but we're proud of our kids.
Yeah.
It's
great work.
And the work you're doing to support them. So we're appreciative.
I was just curious because between what we just saw about courses and then looking on the back about advanced placement and UConn ECE, are we seeing like still a trend of moving more towards ECE, or is it kind of leveling out a little bit?
ECE is very, very popular. You have all the data.
Yeah.
The same trend line in your scheduling, and
I would say that we're a little bit flat.
Okay.
We brought on another ECE class last year, so I think our numbers went up for that. But I can't say that we're seeing a tremendous slide. Our AP program is still powerful, and we still have kids interested in that. But ECE it's not losing traction.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Put it on your refrigerators. And
I'm gonna hang it over my kids' beds.
That's right.
You should celebrate this as a board. So you've done a lot to support this. We thank you.
Well, I hope you all are taking your moment to celebrate it as well.
Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, I won't go into it, but Bobby included in your packet just some information about, we'd asked him for an update about fall sports. We've got, more than a third of the high school student population participating in one of the fall sports. We've got a couple children playing field hockey here, right, of some folks at this table, and the team's doing very well. All of our teams, continue to be competitive. I will want to call out one piece. And I think somebody had asked a question about this not too long ago. A couple of years ago, we renovated the fitness center with the goal of opening that up and having that space available, not simply for our athletes, but for all kids. And so last year, Bobby approached me with a proposal to partner with Sacred Heart University to bring in personal training, fitness training interns from Sacred Heart. So we've done that. There is a fitness trainer intern from Sacred Heart on site. That facility is now open 4 days a week. Kids have to register in advance. They can come with their own program. They can work with the trainer to develop a program. And then he's, in addition to that, working with some of our teams. So that was a plan that we'd had to, again, just to improve, access for all kids. And I was here, pretty late last night, and the place was packed.
I was going to ask, are people taking it up?
They definitely are. So this was, I was really pleased. I didn't realize that we had talked about. I just didn't know that it was up and running already. But kudos to Bobby and his team for getting that thing going. So that's another just check the box. Great opportunity for our kids to work in a state-of-the-art facility.
Our 96 seniors, is that a low number for our seniors participating in the fall sport? I don't know anything about it. This is total ignorance on my part.
I couldn't tell you comparatively if it is or not.
Those are numbers we could get.
I figure there's about 300, so that's a third of the class. All right.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Got some friends here waiting to talk to the board. Thanks for hanging in there.
Oh, good.
Just looking at the time.
Yeah.
We're going to go fast.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys, come on up. Don't be
on
shy.
up.
Come and introduce yourselves. Say hello.
My people.
So while they come up, thank you for taking some time to talk about student services, special education, and our students with disabilities here in the Wilton Public Schools. Joining me tonight is a leadership team like no other. These are, I get to know these women. These are very, very powerful women. They understand the work we do. They are extraordinary, both boots on the ground, direct service providers, as well as leaders at their building level. And I guarantee you, in time, you will be seeing them sitting in my chair and other leadership chairs around this district. So get to know them well. They are extraordinary. So let me start. I'll start here. We have the incomparable Polly Metz, who is a special educator and instructional leader at Middlebrook. She is a leader of extraordinary potential, so please watch her. She's innovative and creative and quite gifted. Next to her is Sarah Marcus. She is a speech pathologist, boots on the ground speech pathologist, opening up the world of communication to our youngest learners at Miller Driscoll. And as you can imagine, the instructional leadership position at Miller Driscoll has many joys to it in terms of organizing the many paraprofessionals and the supports and the new students coming in. The identification of new young learners with disabilities is often happening at that stage, and so she is instrumental in leading those efforts. Next to her, you know Melissa Barrett, who is our assistant director for the secondary schools, grades 6 through age 22. And Melissa has led so many new and innovative initiatives over the years. I've known her for a long time, plucked her from the jaws of the English department many, many years ago and said, you need to be a special ed teacher. So I am so proud of her. Next to her is Sharon D'Angelo, and she is our assistant director for pre-K through grade 5. Sharon is an extraordinary leader and really works hard to do much of the identification of students with disabilities, keeping up with all of the newness that comes in. Nothing surprises her ever, which shocks me because I'm surprised like every day. But Sharon is a calm and disciplined leader, and certainly one to watch.
I get credit for stealing her.
You get credit for stealing Sharon.
It's on the soccer field.
Yeah, the soccer field. You got her at the soccer field. Next to her is our newest IL in the district, Katie Miller. She took over from Abby Cass, who, as you know, is now the one of the assistant principals at Miller Driscoll. So welcome to our team, and she has already hit the ground running at Cider Mill and is making quite a difference. And next to her, she never gets out of special ed. We keep her. We're keeping her forever. We have Nicole Corzet from Middlebrook, who is the assistant principal, but she'll always be one of us. And so she joins us on our leadership team. So tonight, we gave you data. You've got lots of numbers about who are our students with disabilities, where are they, what is the nature of their disability in the big picture, the broad stroke in terms of the federal defining categories of disability under the IDEA. We are continuing to see a bump in prevalence rate in special education. I do believe some of it has to do with the ongoing unfinished learning for some of our kids, particularly our youngest learners, and the impact of those COVID years in those early grades. I believe that it will, wash out over years, but right now I think we're still seeing some struggles with executive functioning skills and some of those early reading skills that need shoring up. And so they are needing some direct instruction and specialized instruction in that area to close those gaps.
We saw a lot of great success in the growth indicators on our standardized testing in special ed this year. So while there still is an achievement gap, that's absolute, we're seeing closure in growth. Our kids are accelerating their growth, and that's due to the leadership of our special education and related services professionals who are working with their general ed teachers, because our students with disabilities are students first. They're in general ed classes. General ed teachers are leading their teams as well in partnership with people who have expertise in the nature and extent of their disabilities. So it is a real partnership between general ed and special ed, and a team that approaches the education of each individual child. I could not be more proud of the work they're doing day in and day out. Particularly, I'm proud of the kids, the grit they show every day. If you can imagine being asked, being required by law to do what is very, very difficult for you to do for 8 hours a day, every single day for 12 to 18 years. Imagine what that must feel like day to day, and the grit and the perseverance that the child has to show, their family, and what that takes to provide the support and the scaffolding to keep them going, and the grit every day, and then the teachers around them who build them up and keep them going and keep them moving in that direction. So I give great honor. It's an honor to work with these kids every single day, and the teachers who teach them, and the families who support them. So I'm grateful. I have the best job in the district, bar none. Sorry, I do. But these kids are amazing. And, the numbers, when you see these numbers, remember that about 20% or so of the students in these numbers are students with disabilities. Right? So they're excelling. It takes every one of those 12 to 18 years to get there. Yeah. But they get there. And that's a testament to the work being done by the many expert people in the district. So I answered some of the questions you sent, and certainly I am open, we are open to answer any questions you might have or any thoughts you might have about the work we do.
So I guess I just had a question about, so when we talk about the count, if a child has 2 disabilities,
No, they're only counted once.
So the count is the number of students,
The
not
total number of students.
Okay.
Correct.
And that's students on IEPs, not 504
504s.
accommodations.
Correct.
Okay. And so the kind of like where I was just kind of looking at the prevalence jump, if I was looking at numbers right, it kind of seems like it's being driven a little bit more by the emotional category.
Emotional disability, other health impairment.
And other health impairment. And that seems to be is it correct to say that's driving the prevalence this year from the last year from the 15 to
Overall, it is higher in those categories, but you still have to look at the specific learning disability category as well.
Okay.
Along with other health impairment and the emotional disability category.
Yeah. And what is the other? What is that?
Other health impairment is a category that captures, for example, you might have a student who, as a result of type 1 diabetes, has issues that require some specialized instruction. They would fall in other health impairment.
The main driver is not like a specific learning
Is
disability, it's a
an
medical
LD, a dyslexia, it's a medical condition driving an impact. A child who's, who may have a seizure disorder. Along with things like attention deficit disorder. Sometimes students with depression can be categorized in other health impairment. So it's a catch-all for all things that don't fit in the other 12 categories.
Yeah. And then I was just kind of curious, and you might not have these numbers there. Are you seeing a rise in referrals to actual, or is it kind of like when someone is referred for testing to see that they qualify for services, do you track how many?
We do. Most referrals,
Lead to.
most referrals, by the time they get to the referral to special ed stage, most referrals will result in identification. Occasionally, you will see someone who's referred, particularly parent referrals, and we'll be able to show the difference between, unexplained underachievement or something that might need an intervention but not be necessarily a neurobiologically based disability. But most referrals, the teams are really good at finding the kids. Yeah.
What's the split between parent referrals and staff referrals?
The bulk of them, about 70 to 75% of the referrals we get are from the staff. Parents are always involved. Teachers are talking to parents all the time, so, but the staff will make the referral most of the time.
And so what do you see as like the biggest resource challenge to you coming up in the next year or two?
The resource challenge we have is we have such little wiggle room in our budget. The budget over the past couple of years has just gotten so tight in special education that we just don't have wiggle room for new kids moving in. We don't have wiggle room for when things happen during the year, and so
Is that personnel mostly?
Sometimes it's personnel, sometimes it's just, we might have a very complex student and we might need some contracted resources to help us understand their needs and build programs around them. And so it can be just, a deeper dive evaluation than we can do in our school district might need. And we just don't have a lot of wiggle room in those areas anymore.
And as a district, we're obligated to pay for any type of evaluation? Is that how does that work?
We're obligated to do a comprehensive evaluation to find all areas of suspected disability. When you have a very complex learner, sometimes you need to do a deeper dive and you need to hire people with a higher level of expertise. Sometimes, for example, a youngster who is not speaking and we've exhausted, we might need an augmentative communication evaluation that really takes a deep dive into communication, and then our staff can implement. So it really is dependent on the student. Not all kids need that deep a dive, but some do, and when it does, it can be very expensive. And we just, the lack of wiggle room, what concerns me about that is under federal law, we have obligations, so we will do the evals that are needed. We'll do the work that's needed because it's required of us by law. But what ends up happening is you see things like October and November freezes to the rest of the budget to cover those costs, so that things that people budgeted for on the general ed side don't get moved forward because special education takes that funding early on, and that kind of thing I think sets up bad relationship. It's just bad to say we need to get our kids are going to get it because the federal law requires, but we're missing, we're robbing from Peter to pay Paul sometimes. And I think that's a concern to all of us, because we want our kids to get what they need, but we don't want them to get it at the expense of everyone else. And that's when the budgets get as tight as they do, when we lose grant funding out of the blue and we don't have that, when the excess cost provision is starting to decrease and not cover some of our very complex kids who have very costly programs, it starts to draw funding, and that worries me. The big issue that you'll hear from us coming into the budget season this year is we've talked about this for the past couple of years. We've got some weaknesses in the continuum of service, and Cider Mill is where we're going to be focusing this year. We've talked about that over the past couple of years, and so you'll be hearing some requests from us to help shore up the continuum of service at Cider Mill.
Would that be like a Genesis program that you would establish there?
It'll look very different
But that,
at
that's
the elementary,
idea.
but I think meeting those needs at Cider Mill is going to be really
So I was going
important.
to ask you about the transitional years from second grade to third grade and fifth grade to, you know, fifth grade to the Middlebrook.
Yeah.
Are those still tricky? Is that in terms of just assessment of the need for the child?
The second to third grade transition is tricky.
Yeah, that's what I.
Is very tricky. That's a tricky time.
Yeah.
Fifth to sixth is less so, but still interesting.
Yeah.
Still interesting. And then I think we've done a really good job moving from that 8th to 9th and kind of that smoothing out that transition a little bit. And then our Big T transition program, our Community Steps program for our most complex learners moving on beyond high school is really doing extraordinary work out there. They're just doing great stuff. I think focusing on that second to third grade transition.
Yeah. You can tell by the test scores that that there's a struggle there,
Yeah.
and we put the third grade up there mostly not as an educational idea, but because we were so overcrowded in Miller Driscoll. So it wasn't an educational decision, it was we have too many kids and we have to do something, so third grade's gonna go up there. But I'm not sure educationally that has worked out particularly well.
Well, it's a challenging time, and it's a challenging leap in the curriculum. There are lots of reasons why that
I agree.
grade, second to third, is challenging, and having them go to different schools and adding
just adds another layer.
that change adds another layer to it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Oy. You have a great job.
I do. I really do.
So do they.
Yes, they do.
Anything that any of you would want to share with the board at this point? Either in reference to any of the conversation so far, any of the information, day in the life, pit and a peak, peak and a pit?
Thank you. So I think, 2017, I came to you, some of you were a part of a brainstorming committee with 4 kids in community steps, and said, I promise we're going to grow. Just stay with me. So we now have 13 students in community steps, and we have a real range. We have a lot of students you've seen out and about, but we have students at West End, UConn Sanford, NCC, students that need a semester or a year to kind of really understand the life of being a college student. So we really expand the spectrum of students there. And then we came to you in 2017 about Genesis. And the pilot behind Genesis was we wanted to really try to catch kids who were struggling in grades 7 to 9 to skill them up to prevent the school avoidance and attendance issues we were seeing. And we really have. We have a really large middle school population, and it's doing exactly what we really have designed to do. All of our high school students, except 3, are shared with the high school. So they're coming up here for AV courses, they're coming up here for electives because they've been able to be skilled up. So
It's a great program.
A huge thank you to kind of being behind that. And then, I want to give a thank you to Kim Zemo in the next part, and Joy Lawrence, who is our IELP high school. Her son is at his commissioning ceremony of being a second lieutenant in the United States Navy. She is amazing, and the glue to the high school department. But a huge success of high school is we, in the 22-23 school year, had 27 mobile crisis calls, and we went down to only 4 the following school year. And I think a large part of that was the work led by Kim and the screeners. So we brought up the transition years. We are screening students in the transition years, which I think has been really helpful. And we've also started screening any students coming new into district. Because those are students that sometimes, especially at the secondary level, it's hard. So that is the most important data, right? And when you hear what the youth council brought up today, and then hearing those data from a school perspective, it's that I think speaks to a lot of the work our mental health team does. And I think at the middle school level, there was a lot of effort with the new schedule change.
And re-effort. And effort again.
We're all done with that now. But we moved into skill blocks, which was really exciting. So our students and Polly and Nicole led all of that work. But that we were able to have students, academic lab was kind of a catchment for, helping on all different goals and objectives, but now those skill blocks are set up by what instruction the students need. So it's kind of more of a focused intervention, which I think has been really great for students. So thank you for supporting all that work.
And I think our next, as we're transitioning, going into our executive functioning work in the skill groups, and then also really trying to build the capacity of all of our teachers in executive functioning and where that works in the curriculum, and then also how to embed it across the board so that parents learn skills as well. Because that is some of the OHI that you're seeing, and then also some of the stress that comes out in students and some of the emotional disability, and then hopefully bringing some of the programs and supports that we have at the middle school, giving Cider Mills some more resources to be able to continue to bridge that.
Then there's kindergarten, right?
Right.
Where you have no idea what you're getting until they walk in the door.
Continue to grow. So we are down, we go back down to the babies, and we continue to onboard over 30 of our new little students every year into our preschool, which is absolutely booming. Bernadette has told me today that we have our very youngest on our wait list right now. That baby is 1 right now. He's on our preschool wait list. So that's our marker for how coveted our preschool program is. And once again, you guys supported all of that work when we were expanding that preschool. It's absolutely amazing. We always say come visit because it literally is just the greatest place.
If you're ever depressed, go spend a day at the preschool.
No,
It's the best thing
it's just
ever.
charming.
It's
best.
It's adorable.
And I think Andrea talked about just like the hard work of the students. And when you see these little kids come in and they have physical disabilities and they have, just learning disabilities and speech and communication concerns, and they just, it's almost like it doesn't even matter to them. They just come and work so hard. It's just the most beautiful thing. And we continue to do a ton of work with play down at our preschool. And that goes all the way up through the elementary schools. It's a huge focus. Kathy Kuhn talks about it all the time, I know, but it's because it's so huge. I get a lot of calls from prospective Wilton move-ins because of the age group that I work in, and I got one today. I usually get at least 2 to 3 a week, to be honest with you, and I've told Dr. Smith that I've gotten calls from Africa and Australia and stuff of people who had heard of Wilton because of the school. So it's amazing to me. But I did get a call today from somebody down in New York who's prospectively moving in, and the first thing she asked was, do you do the play? Do you guys work on play? And I said, absolutely. And she said, can you tell me about it? And I went into everything that Miller Driscoll is doing, and she was like, you are the first school that I've talked with that has all this amazing stuff going on. You guys are, that's really great. I'm not looking for people. I just want you to know. I do not call people. I'm not soliciting.
Those of you who think we recruit, we don't.
But
we do love our job.
Yeah, so a ton of work. And Cider Mill, honestly, the work continues there. We are all DBT trained now at Cider Mill. The work continues there. I have Tanya and Leonard coming down to Miller Driscoll this year to do baby DBT. So we're very excited about that. That should happen between December and January. That'll happen. So our staff, our special education staff, we're going to start with paraprofessionals and special ed there and have time to do that. So we're expanding all of our resources. I have a couple psychologists going to the space program up at Yale, which has previously been geared more toward adolescents, but they are now expanding. So they're getting that training too. There's a lot going on, but I know you guys are tired. I won't keep going, but
I just have one more question.
Yeah.
So for Cider Mill, when you have a kid that goes from Miller Driscoll to Cider Mill that's in special ed, at what point does Cider Mill start to prepare Middlebrook for that student? Like, is it just at the end of 5th grade, or do they start talking about it in 4th grade? Like, and is that like a kind of like an ad hoc process, or is there a formalized process for helping Middlebrook get prepared for those kids?
We have kind of
start in like January.
Yeah. Sometimes even earlier. It's like a tiered process depending on the student and their needs.
Okay.
And then sometimes we change the schedule and we do 30 amendments, and we meet with everyone again.
We start, Sharon and Andre and I obviously look at it from a numbers perspective of how many kids are coming up, what the hours are, and then we meet as an IL team and talk about cases that have more complex needs, and we sometimes have joining team meetings in December to plan out that transition. But every family has an opportunity to meet with the receiving team. sometime in the spring. But again, it's a tiered approach really based on what the complexity of the student's IEP.
Do you think because the Middlebrook is their first opportunity to not be in an isolated classroom, is that why it's so difficult to have that transition?
I don't think that it could, well, we're changing now. We have our fifth graders are teaming in math science and ELA, so they are switching now. It's a little bit different there, but I don't know that I see a big...
Yeah, our transitions are pretty smooth. I mean, our referral rate at Middlebrook last year was high. It was the highest it's been in a while, so we did a lot of work this summer unpacking those referrals, and to Nicole's point, a large portion of those referrals was around executive functioning and emotional regulation. So we started a new SRBI process at Middlebrook this year that focuses on those interventions outside of academics, and are training the whole staff on the tier 1 interventions, because that's where I think we had some gaps.
Because these are the COVID kids, the 6th grade years.
Yeah, they're so great though.
I know, I'm sure, but I realize that that's probably one of the most critical years is coming in this year.
There's always a conversation, and I love it, having been in all 4 buildings here, it's always interesting to me, but like there's always a conversation from the 6th grade to me. Like Tanya will call me and she'll go, can you stop with these behavior plans? I don't have stickers, you know, or like there's always conversations like, you know, they need to have a certain amount of skills in order to be successful when they're walking around the building the size of Middlebrook or something like that. So those conversations do always happen, and we do the same thing, you know, to Mother Driscoll. Like, Katie will call me and she'll be like, did you see, you know, on the IEPs they're using X, you know, we're going to have to change that by the time they get up here. So we have those conversations, and we definitely do everything we can to prepare the kids with independence. Independence is a huge thing that we're working on, just stamina, independent skills, perseverance, and working through struggle is kind of our theme right now that we're doing with all of our kids, just because that's what they're lacking. That's what's causing a lot of what's going on right now. So we have to teach them through that, but we do. We always
I'm sure you do. I just wasn't sure like when it started and if it was formal or...
Our most complex kids we have, you know, for our most complex learners, it really is a pre-K to 22. The teachers of those kids, the leaders of those teams, they're communicating all the time in terms of developing assured assessments, making sure we have a progression of assessments from early learning through to age-appropriate life skill learning. There's all kinds of things that are happening for those very, very complex kids. And then we're looking at the aggregate of, you know, what are the skills necessary to be a successful 6th grader at Middlebrook? And then how do we roll that back? Same with 9th grade back. What does it mean to go into 9th grade to be successful? You don't have to be perfect, but you need to have a readiness level to understand what's going to happen to you and to tolerate the distress of not always knowing, right? The uncertainty. Yeah. Those are some of the things that our kids need to learn. They don't learn it by osmosis. They need to be directly taught those things.
Thank you. One question about Genesis. Has the science teacher been filled?
Not yet.
Do you have some plans in place to maintain instruction and have certified staff there, but you don't have it yet. It's a hard time to do.
These are fragile kids, and I'm just worried about them.
We are all worried, but we have plans in place to work through this with the kids, but you know we're on it. It's not lost on us.
Any other questions for Andrea? Well, just a big thank you from all of us.
Thank you. Aren't they
everything
awesome?
that-
Aren't they
yes.
amazing? Yeah, there you go.
Yes. And so are you, so thank you.
Great. Thanks for hanging in. They appreciate it.
Thank you.
Even when we said we're going to be quick.
I know. Well, we'll move to the next
Let's
piece
move
here.
quick.
So policies, there's a range of them here, and just briefly, I'll walk you through them. The first one on the agenda is the minority staff recruitment policy. This is an existing policy. It's been in place for a long time. Really, what's more important than the policy is the plan, and so as you know, there were some changes made at the state. Maria submitted a plan that you all approved last spring. We got some feedback from the State Department of Education this summer, so she's making some minor modifications to the plan, and it's going back to them. I think what is important here in addition to that is that we continue to maintain this as a focus. As a policy, it's a priority. As a practice, it's a priority, even understanding that finding minority staff is really, really hard for us. But we continue to work on it. No action needs to be taken on this policy with respect to any changes. So we're really just updating our review cycle. The next one is physical examination. We're going to table this policy. There were two changes that I was proposing. One will stand. It's just the reference to the district medical advisor. Just I think a week and a half ago, I was at a session with Shipman and Goodwin being updated on all of the legislative changes, and there is a change to sick leave. There's a bunch of changes to sick leave, and so this whole provision has to be revised. I initially thought the policy would change to reflect the contracts. Now both the contracts and the policy have to be changed to reflect state statute. So this one is going to come back around. The next one is social networking. And so here, we're just doing some updating. We're renaming the policy from social networking to social media. We've updated some of the language here in the policy. I think we leaned on Shipman and Goodwin's model policy. There is an accompanying regulation that does need a little bit of updating as well. The regulation just expands on some of the employee prohibitions there that are listed at the bottom third of the policy.
My only comments on these were just to go through for capital Bs.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so just more of the editing. Yeah, you got it. The age of attendance policy, no news here. The law changed, and so we're just updating the policy to conform with the law. And then the last one is the policy. Actually, I caught in the title. That's policy, not regulation, so I need to change that. But beyond that, what we've done here, I think we spoke about this once before at the end of last year, I've completely supplanted all of the existing language from our current policy and am proposing to replace it with Shipman and Goodwin's model policy. Shipman and Goodwin's model policy is more expansive than what we had. When we revised our codes of conduct this summer, we benched off the Shipman and Goodwin model policy, so when this is approved, those things will align. How was that?
That was impressive.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah, sure.
So these will all come back for a second read at our next meeting.
With the exception,
Of the-
probably,
Yes, of the
physical examination. Correct, yeah.
Yes.
I've got to get some counsel on that.
For possible action items, number 1 is the 24-25 district goals. And we went through these as a board last week, it's actually 3 weeks already, last meeting. And they are now back for action item and vote. Does anybody have any questions or additional comments on the district goals?
No.
Okay, then is there a motion to adopt the WPS goals and priorities for 24-25 as currently drafted?
So moved.
Thank you, Pam. Is there a second? Thank you, Lori. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you. Good. Already at work here.
And then next up is policy 5131.81, use of private technology devices by students, district goal 5 and 6.
Great. So just to couple of small inputs here. Will you, and I think Patrick's supposed to call in at some point too. Okay. Yeah, just pull it up and I'll have you play it in a second. So just a couple of follow-up points. A number of you sent questions, so I placed in front of you the responses to those questions. A number of them were answered through the conversation we had at the board table last time. You know, some of the questions were regulatory in nature, and so I also provided for you a draft copy of the regulation, which is not yet finalized. I anticipate it'll be finalized by the next time we meet. I thought I had it here in front of me. But that, you know, there's nothing in here that we haven't already discussed. So the regulation, you know, just describes, you know, privately owned technologies, and you know, where the elaboration points are really speak to the procedure for students using the Yonder pouches. And then, you know, what some of the carve-outs are. So the teacher-directed use that we talked about a little bit. Some of the, I think there were a couple of questions about consequences for non-compliance. So those are spelled out. I think we talked about, you know, kind of what we were imagining here at the table the last time. And then, you know, some provisions for, you know, parent-guardian student communication. One of the questions that, you know, we need to finalize is around this idea again of just, you know, what are some of the other exceptions, right? I mean, you've heard kind of the broad points of what and why we're trying to do this, but if I thought it would probably be helpful for some kids sometimes if there's a carve-out where if a kid has a particular urgent need to get to his or her phone, we can keep a magnet in the office and that kid can go in, unlock temporarily, you know, do what he or she has to do, and then lock it back up and, you know, go about the day. So that's something we just need to kind of finalize what that procedure is going to look like. So that's at the very bottom of that. You see that under other considerations, office access. Let's see if there's anything else here that's just, you know, key. We had talked about, you know, the enforcement's really kind of a three strikes type approach. We are continuing to receive information from other school districts that have adopted Yonder, and so I wanted to take a minute and share with you a 2.5-minute video. Bob was in touch with some administrators over in New York State from the Bethlehem Central School District. They're outside of Albany. They sent us a bunch of really good resources. So they began talking about this in the late spring of 23. That administration kind of walked the board and the community through the proposal, and, you know, it reads very similar to the conversations we've had here in Wilton. They implemented in the fall of 23, in September 23, when the kids returned to school, and this video is they recorded in the spring of 24, so last spring, just to capture, you know, kind of what happened after implementation. And, you know, as I've been reading everything else, the story arc for most schools that have done this is virtually the same. And here's just a, you know, a live action bit that you can see and hear from some kids and from staff members. Lucille, are you able to play that?
To me, the most important thing that you learn in school is how to build relationships, how to communicate, and the most important thing that the school district can do is to build a sense of community. And I think the Yonder patches help to do both of those things.
First, though, when I heard about the Yonder patches, I didn't really agree. I feel like kids should have their phone because that's what we've been used to for the 12 years we've been in school. So I was very skeptical about it.
Obviously, it was a more frustrating feeling, and you felt like your independence was getting taken away, and you felt like you didn't have as much power, I guess you could say.
I think a lot of people were shocked that we were going to do this, we were even thinking about it. This wasn't about discipline, it wasn't about us wanting to tell them what to do. It was more about their mental health, overall well-being. The social aspect of school, to me, personally, is just as important as the academic piece. And what we're noticing is the social aspect of school is being taken away because of the devices. We wanted to try to help have students understand balance, which is we all need that, the adults included, and we thought this would be a great opportunity.
You know, it's just
breaking the habit or the compulsion to check their phone throughout the day. And I think it'd be hard for adults to do it as well, to put it away, this device that they used to have on them every waking hour. But the benefits of it are very obvious. When you walk around the building, you see in the hallways, they have their heads up, they're talking, they say hi to you.
Definitely, my mind has changed. I have noticed a lot more socialization between the students. Kids are focusing more on their academics during school. The hallways are louder. Kids aren't with their heads down at the floor on their phone.
Peers have actually been talking a lot more. I can speak for myself. I've been communicating with a lot more people, and communication has gotten better. I feel like looking up and communicating with others and having conversations with peers can definitely help the culture in the school.
I've had the chance to get to know my students so much more, because if they're the first ones in the room, instead of looking down at their phone, they're actually engaging with me. I can talk to them about what they're doing on the weekend or after class. So it's just creating a lot more positive social climate.
I noticed that the hallways are full of talking and laughter, less distraction with phones in the classrooms. So overall, it's been a positive experience for the younger Belches.
I just think it has and will continue to make for a better school community.
Thank you for
Welcome to education.com, your home for expertly crafted resources to help your
So just, a couple other things that I learned when I was reviewing their materials. There's an organization over in New York. It's called New York State Unified Teachers, and it's a consortium of all of the education unions, so like 2,100. They represent K-12, nurses, higher ed, and they had a conference several weeks ago specifically about cell phones and social media in schools. And so there were a couple of articles. One, these folks from Bethlehem Central were on a panel, and I was just, Peg, you might appreciate this. This is a quote from the president of the teachers union, and so in the Bethlehem Central School District, he's quoted as saying, "As president of the teachers union, I gave Superintendent Monroe 100 reasons why this policy would not work. It's a bell-to-bell prohibition policy, and I'm so happy that I was wrong. I was 100% wrong." Rounds told the audience. "It wasn't as hard to implement as we thought it was going to be, and efforts by the support staff to enforce the policy have been outstanding, and the best part of it is the kids have changed." And so, again, this is not a surprise to me personally, because every article I've read since I started looking into this has been about the same type of feedback. The other thing that I found really compelling when I was looking through some of these materials, this NICED organization, they have a board comprised of 83 people, and at the end of this conference, they developed a resolution to support bell-to-bell cell phone bans in all schools, and that resolution was passed by this organization unanimously, 83 votes. So I'm happy to send these articles around. I picked them up in the last week or so. Bob, anything from the Bethlehem folks that you would want to share?
I don't have it. So when I try to contact principals, I generally have Kathleen reach out to their assistants, and because otherwise you just try to trade messages. And so what happened was she set up a meeting with me to talk to the principal, which is in the future. But right away, the very next day, I received all this information from the assistant soup, and I just found it very compelling. So I passed it on to Kim and to Kevin. So I'm eager to speak to certainly the principal. And also, I think it'd be valuable for us, as I talked with Dr. Smith, to even talk with the assistant soup and find out as we get ready, pending tonight, when you really start thinking about logistics and rollout, like we talked about previously, just making sure that we take the time to get this right and gather the information that we need. And as we know, prior experience can really inform future experience. So that's kind of the philosophy of that. So more to come on that.
It's interesting to see the magnets, because I couldn't figure out what that looked like. So I had no idea. So
there's different ones. There's ones you can handheld and you clip. There's ones that go up on walls. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. Stand.
And on a stand too. I just had I wasn't sure how that, because as you know, the logistics are just a big hurdle, I would think. Not undoable, but just big.
Not undoable. We said we had the Yonder person out, and she's been quite helpful. She has experience in many schools and spent time just analyzing the entry to our school, egress, the whole access points, and felt it was very doable. We believe we have the number of magnets we need right now, and we have a vision for how to deploy them to ensure what I'm describing is just flow.
Yeah.
Because rightfully the kids are saying, including the ones I was talking to today, we don't want to be held up too much. We want to be on time for our commitments and athletics or buses, and so that's something that it is not undoable, and we believe we can do it. If there are glitches or issues, we'll adjust and evaluate and readjust.
Yeah, the Bethlehem people will be good to talk to. Their high school is just a bit bigger than ours.
Yep.
And so, in all the materials that they provided, I think the concerns were presented, but, there's nothing in the information that suggested that there was a problem.
No, I think the kids in the video were very positive.
Interesting, right?
Yeah,
it was just that's. I mean,
like,
again,
they
one
didn't
district's
want it, was
experience, but
against
not uncommon based on all the reading that at least I've seen so far.
They didn't interview any other kids there. Let's just be honest with ourselves here, people. Come on.
Of course.
Well, I will say we started playing with this at Genesis at the start of the year. We talked to the kids about it. We reviewed what the policy might look like and what it was going to be, and we wanted to practice. And so we've been practicing. And I will tell you, the difference in how kids are interacting with each other during those times between classes or break times is compelling. The kids are engaging with each other. Last year at the same time, when they used to get their phones in between classes, they could take their phone and they would all be spread out and all here, all of them. And now they're interacting with one another in much better ways. It has had a really I thought they were going to fight it. I thought we were going to be chasing them all over. I really thought all of that was going to become policing them. But we decided we were going to give it a shot. We talked to them about it, and we said, let's try. Let's see. If it's going to happen, we got to be ready. And
you think you guys will use the Yonder pouches there or implement whatever you've done in the practice?
I would do the Yonder pouches there simply because we want the kids to practice what they will do should they come back to the high school. If they're in their shared programs, they're going to be using them. And I want them to have the experience of using them. But I think it really is astonishing when you give them a chance to take a break, even if it's a little bit of a forced break initially, that they become kids again. It's something.
And just to go kind of full circle, I was over there on the first or second day of school to talk with all of them about this, and all of the survey feedback, they weren't psyched about the idea, and they had about 500 reasons why we shouldn't go forward, and again, here we are.
And I don't know if I surveyed them all today whether they'd say we should have our phones or not, but they're more playful, they're more joyful, the noise, the social noise in those moments is so much better than it was last year.
Yeah, that's great.
So the next steps, specific to the high school, pending approval tonight. I think it's magnificent that today is World Mental Health Day. I did not know that. So what a powerful symbol if you adopt this policy. We're looking at the start of the second quarter to implement, so that's somewhere early November. We have, like I said, a little more regulation work to do, which I'll come back to you. I think we have a pretty clear plan at this point for the implementation rollout, and then we'll begin to set up the Yonder pouch infrastructure. We'll do that beginning next week. And then, starting to just, communicate about what that's going to look like with kids, and so then they'll be prepared as of whatever the Q2 start is.
So by our next meeting, the regulation will be?
I think so. It'll be ready to go. And I think, honestly, Nicola, it's, as I'm looking at these, it's pretty close.
But we don't get to vote on this, we vote on this.
You vote on the policy, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the spirit of, these things, you want to know what's happening now and kind of what the logistics are. I think that's, pretty close to complete.
Can the regulation be posted somewhere so parents?
Yeah, well, this will be, just like with our other regulations, it'll become part of the policy manual, and so, and then we can...
Would they see it prior to the vote? Like, the community wouldn't see this?
No, so you're seeing kind of my first go.
Yeah.
This will become, like all other regulations, part of the policy, but I'm happy to share it. We can post it to the website and disseminate it. Again, I don't know that there's anything in here that's, it's information.
Yeah, I think the community would like to see it.
Yeah. Considering how they found out the first time.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I think the general practice is that the board makes policy and votes on policy, and the implementation and the regulations are for the administration to go ahead, and sometimes in understanding how our policies will look and work, we see regulations at the table, we look to see how they're going to unfold, and then as our policies are, if our policies are approved and implemented through regulatory mechanisms, then we can bring it back to the table and say, is our policy being implemented in a way that we find is effective and working, and we monitor and we evaluate. So the same way that we'll be looking at the Middlebrook schedule again in a couple of weeks, to look and see how that's unfolding. But I think, in terms of practice, it's the fine tuning and the actual regulatory details live in the buildings.
Yeah.
And the kids all know about the first offense, this is going to happen.
Yeah, they'll share that through grade level meetings.
So you have the vote, but what we would do is, and I've talked to my team about this, hold grade level meetings so that we're communicating directly with students, just try to lay it out with further details of the logistics, certainly as you're asking, Nicola, just what the consequences would be. The main point of this, as I've said all along, has to be in the spirit of cooperation and the perceived benefits, just trying to get students on board to try that and give it a try. And you heard some of those students, I think it's a fair point that they may be the more positive ones, but we've listened to a lot of students. And at this point, my conversation with the exec board on Tuesday was, including some of the ones that were here, was, if we make an honest effort, we really believe that this can be beneficial for those four aforementioned things, of just the purpose of all of this. So that has to be first and foremost. But to your question, I think we need to be just very clear. Here's the practice. Here are the logistics. Here are the locations. Here's what arrival looks like. Here's what dismissal can look like. Here is the process in place to ensure that student athletes are able to get to practices and/or contests in time. Here are the practices if a student really needs to communicate with somebody, we'll support that. Just all of those, kind of peripheral logistics to make this work well and, get the students on board. So. There's a lot to it, but I think we've got our minds and arms wrapped around a lot of logistics already, and I think we're on our way.
Are we allowing earbuds?
We are.
Yeah. Okay. We'll make sure that got in here. I see the exceptions for health, safety, and emergency, and I know we talked about discretion for Spirit Day and things like that. Is that verbiage somewhere in?
It's in the regulation. Yeah. So there's, the exceptions to the restrictions of this regulation. Part may be made for health, safety, emergency, or other reasons by the school principal or designee.
Okay.
Any other questions for Kevin or Bob?
We're looking for the sports uniform.
Yeah, the sports U questions there, I spoke to Bobby, and so, he had kind of two responses. One, he felt like that was not a big hurdle. It sounds like he's already got a practice in place to have coaches communicate the night before. Said he can set it up by 7:45, and then there are other ways, we can share messages if need be, if there is a change that's made during the school day.
Can we, in the future, talk about, I don't know when this would happen, expenditures without board permission?
There's a policy on it. It's perfectly permissible.
For $80,000 spent?
Yes.
Without talking to anybody on the board? Or a policy that was never approved?
Yeah.
Sure.
It's so interesting.
Up here.
What's the max? Like, how much can a superintendent sign off on without permission?
I don't have the answer to that question. But I think, procedurally, we can certainly talk about all expenditures and how they're done. That's
Okay. Because I like the policy. I just wish it hadn't happened this way.
I know we have Pat with us, right? Yep. Okay, I just want to make sure that he was able to hear us and if he had any. Okay.
Yeah, no, I can hear you guys. I'm good. No other questions. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Hearing no other further questions or discussion, is there a motion?
Can I just ask a quick question about Middlebrook and because it's working well without yonder bags right
At the moment
now?
it is, correct.
So is the plan to keep doing what's working?
It is. And we're just going to wait and see. And if we need to use them there, we will. So we're tracking just cell phone infractions.
So how many of the bags do we have now?
We have a couple thousand.
How many?
A couple thousand. So we have enough for the middle school population, the high school population, and then a small percentage for damages. And so if we decide not to use them, then we'll have them for replacement over time.
Any other questions or discussion? Is there a motion to adopt policy 5131.81, use of private technology devices by students?
I so move.
Thank you, Pam. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Oh, Pat. Thank you, Pat. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm an aye. I'm just, really don't like this.
Okay, so it carries unanimously?
Did Nicola vote?
Did you vote? I'm sorry.
I'm all for the policy. I'm all for taking the phones out of the school to give an opportunity. But I vote yes, but from a transparency, and I usually don't like that word, but from a transparency perspective, I wish that this had been done differently.
So the motion carries unanimously. I would just want to take a moment to thank everyone, from parents to students to teachers, administrators, and fellow board members for their time and thoughts and comments. And that, if anybody else wants to talk about their vote, I'm going to just take a minute to talk about mine. That, I am persuaded that the benefits that will accrue to students and the school environment, both academic and social, in a student cell phone-free school outweigh the concerns. And I know that change isn't easy, especially when it disrupts our habits and our behaviors. but I believe our students are in good hands with building and district leadership. And I believe that working together and using the Yonder bags, we will find our way to successful implementation. I also, as a board member and a chair, look forward to hearing more from the administration as they implement the policy and evaluate outcomes. So I just want to thank everybody for their, in the community at large, and everyone for their time and effort on this. Comments from the public. Seeing none. Future business, the board will have a meeting on Thursday, October 24th, and then again on November 7th, and then again on November 21st. Meeting is adjourned at 9:24.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.